Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OOpS, the show where I'm overly opinionated about something or another. Today's episode 7, I believe. And uh, today I'm drinking a blueberry green tea, chai blended, infused, vapored, watered down tea. So let's talk about it. So for today's episode, I have a request of talking about my dreams today. Uh, and by request, I mean no one said it. I said it to myself when I woke up this morning, and I was like, I think I need to do an episode where I talk about my dreams because I had a really awful, bad dream last night. And let me just explain some things first. So me, right, as like a 22-year-old gay man um in the South, I have not that any of that matters, but I have about like 5 to 6 dreams every single night. Sometimes 7 if I just have like high anxiety or if I'm worrying about something. And last night I had like the same dream, like like 6 or 7 times. And the way my dreams work is like I can interact with people, I can talk with people, I can feel things, I can touch things, I can smell them, I can read things. I know a lot of there's like a thing I've seen in like movies and online and stuff that says like you can't read in your dreams, but for some reason I can. Or maybe it's because like um maybe it's because I have like synesthesia, um, or whatever it's called, where like I can see colors with the words. Maybe my brain is interpreting colors as words, and so it's implanting things, and I'm able to like read it. I don't know. Um, so like because I'm able to like read things like fully and like understand them. But maybe it's because I'm looking at like thinking about colors and not necessarily like the letters on the page. I don't know. Um, and yeah, and usually in my dreams, there's like 2 or 3 of them that are the same one, and then I have like a new set of dreams and like the 2 or 3 of them, and then I wake up, or things like that. But last night it was all the same one, and it was basically like a movie, and I'm gonna tell you about it because it really shook me to my core when I woke up this morning. I so I'll explain to you that I'll tell you what happened in the dream, and then afterwards I will say how I think this would be an amazing horror film. Because like just be warned, this is a really scary thing. So mm when I first got into the dream, something about my dreams too is like I never like wake up in them, or like they always just start to happen, which I think happens to everyone, but mine just kind of start to happen. I've never like picked up and placed into them. However, when I'm in the dream, I can pick myself up and place myself as different characters or different people throughout like the dream. And I would say 99% of my dreams are kind of like movies where I have like different perspectives and different like camera angles, or like different like costumes, and there's always different things going on where like quote quote the camera like kind of shifts around. um it's never like one thing like directly in front of me. Like sometimes I'm like over there looking at myself, or sometimes I'm like above me staring down at what's happening, or things like that. um, and sometimes because I have glasses, sometimes my dreams are blurry because like if you have glasses, you can go through life and everything be kind of blurry, or until you put on your glasses, or like in the morning whenever you like first wake up, or when you need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, you like you don't put your glasses on to do it, so you can just walk and do it, or when you take a shower, things like that. So sometimes my dreams are blurry, like when I don't have glasses on. And I've had a few dreams where I've spoken like entirely in other languages. I remember the first time this happened, I was in high school, and when I was taking Spanish, I think the way my brain takes in languages and information is that like I categorize it as is kind of like a coloring book, I guess, because like I'm able to like color in like the words. Uh, so like I remember one dream when like I was using Spanish for the whole thing, even though I did not know Spanish well enough to do so. I think me hearing stuff and like hearing and like watching films in Spanish, and like I was able to take in all those words and I knew what they were because I heard them, or like I at least saw them once and then I realized what they were, and then I was able to use them. But like during regular day activities, I'm not able to like recall them or like use them unless I've like learned them. So that's interesting too. And the same goes with Chinese and Japanese, where I've had full conversations with people in Chinese. And then when I've woken up, I've like remembered that everything I said was correct. And like I remembered that everything I said was like true, you know, correct, real Chinese. Um, and um, and then like when I go and like write it down, or like when I like wake up and like I fully wake up like 2 minutes later and I, you know, like try to think about it again, I can't remember what I said. But I remember when I wake up that it was like perfect. And I remembered everything and like all the vocabulary and all the sentence structures and things like that. Um, and in Japanese too, I've had that happen. But okay, so for the dream, my dream last night. Okay, like we're like 5 minutes in. Now you understand how my dreams work. Blah blah blah. Like okay, so dream last night. It was kind of like a sci-fi in the future type thing, but it was kind of like zombies, but more kind of like spirits and haunting. So what happened is that this took place in like 2 or 3 rooms, and then it moved as the dream went on. It moved outside. So there's like these groups of people who were like on another planet, or like in space, or like in desecrated Earth. There's like some place that I do not know of, or that I do not understand. It kind of later in the dream, or like later in the film, it turned into like the Grand Canyon kind of, where it's like very like earthy, and there's columns of, you know, secret caves and all that stuff. But in the beginning, it takes place in 1 or 2 rooms, and it looks kind of like in sci-fi films, and like a spaceship kind of, where like the walls are like metal, and the floor is metal and things like that. And so what happened is someone had to someone has to so all these people live in this little like room, right? Or they live in like this little like commune where it has like, you know, tunnels that are like also like you know, like walled with metal and things like that. It looks, you know, it looks like a facility, like on like a spaceship, right? um but you can walk fully on it. There's gravity and things like that. There's like hallways and tunnels and rooms and things like that. But in this one particular room, everyone is waiting for one person to come out of a locked secret room. And in that locked secret room, um, you have a chance of getting to the outside of wherever it is that you're in right now. So like they're in like a secret facility. And if they somehow unlock or put in a secret code, they're able to get out of the facility and save themselves. But here's the thing. Um, so as I woke up, I started to like put everything together, and I realized what it was. So in this room, on the other side of the room, okay, so like there's 2 rooms adjacent to each other, like let's say left and right, and there's like a meeting space in the middle, and in the middle there's one person from each room that goes into it, and they both decide on who should be able to leave. And if they correctly choose it, that they can leave it, but they're the only person allowed to leave because it's a locked room. Everyone else inside both of those rooms still has to stay in there. And the other person who loses, uh, becomes like a zombie figure or whatever, like something like that. And what happened is, um, whenever there's someone that gets turns into like a zombie, like specter figure, then they kind of like disappear and like hide in the vents, or like hide like in another place. And like once a month, or like once a year, or like once every so often, those zombie things come and try and eat people or get people. So here's where all of this was afterwards, when I first like woke up and I started to piece things together. But as I was experiencing the dream, what happened first is I was sitting down in one of those rooms. It was like a huge room. It wasn't like a small room. It was like maybe like a gymnasium sized room. And I was sitting in one of those, and everyone started panicking, and then the lights went off. And I didn't understand why the lights went off. And then I started to see like a door open where there was lights still outside in the hallway, but there was no light inside the gymnasium type room. And everyone was like pushed against the wall. Everyone stood perfectly in place. They did not move at all. And this is where I think would be a good horror movie. So these like specter zombie type things were people that were originally in that room, but they turned into those zombie specter type things. So they came in and everyone stood perfectly in place. Like the second the lights went off, they like stood still. They didn't even move. They didn't breathe. They didn't blink. They didn't anything. And so the specters started to come around the room and like go against people. And there started to be more of them. There was like 5 or 6, and there was like 10 or 12, and it was crazy. It was so scary. The specters were bloody. Their mouths were like gone except for like their teeth showing. Like there was like brains everywhere. There was like, some of them were missing eyeballs, some of them had no arms, some of them looked like they were decomposing. And they come in, and if you moved, they ate you. And here's the scary thing about it. So I remember, because in my dreams I'm able to like shift from person to person to person in order to get like a big view of like what's happening. I was, because I didn't understand what was happening, I moved like one of them was walking towards me, and my leg was in the way of where they're about to walk. So I moved it out of the way back towards the wall in which I was against. And they saw my leg in the dark move. And so they grabbed it and they started to eat my leg. And they first started with eating like my knee, and then they started to eat my foot, and then more and more people started to come. And then I started to scream more and more and more. And then a person next to me told me to like stop screaming. And then I stopped screaming and I stopped moving, and they let go of my leg. And they stopped like attacking me as soon as I stopped moving and as soon as I didn't say anything. And then they literally just let it go. And then I held it in place like in the air where they were like biting it. And then they moved on to someone else. And then I shifted perspective. And then I saw other people too, like where they were also pushed up against the wall or like hiding under a table or something like that, and or like sitting in their chairs, like doing whatever they were doing before the lights went off, because the second the lights went off you cannot move at all. So like whatever you were doing before the lights went off, like that's what you were doing. You have to stay in place. And like people were like trading things, people were like high-fiving, people were moving, they were doing everything. And so they started to move around and around. And I remember I was this guy and I was trying to keep my hand held up high enough, but my arm was starting to slip because I didn't have enough like strength in my arm to keep it held up for that long. Because all of this took place in like over like an hour and a half. Like in real time, it felt like it was real time. It was like an hour and a half. And I was shifting from like person to person to person. And I couldn't hold my arm up high enough. And then one of them turned around, and then I saw them turn around. So I put my arm down, and they like came back and they got super, super close in my face. And they like ran up and got super close in my face. And they started to like breathe into my face and like breathe into me. And they started to like, I could like smell the dirt and the decay and the blood and everything. And they started to like, they touched my face, like they touched it. And they started to like touch my arm where I moved it, but I didn't move. I stood completely still, and I did not say anything. I didn't even breathe. I remember like I took one big breath before they turned around, and as I turned around, I like held it the entire time, and this took like so long. And then afterwards, they just kind of like went away. And I remember I saw someone get taken by like their leg or something, and they were like screaming and like trying to claw and get out of the way before they could get taken back into the hallway. And everyone couldn't tell them to like stop moving and like stop screaming, because if you didn't move or you didn't scream, they wouldn't eat you and they wouldn't get you. They couldn't find you. And so they started to like scream, and they were being dragged away into the hallway. And then Then it opened, and then the door closed, and then it was fine. Then everyone was like, "Holy shit, that was so scary!" Blah blah blah, and then they just went back to their regular life, like nothing had ever happened. Afterwards, I shifted myself to a different person, and this person then was chosen by like the community or like by themselves or whatever, just for whatever, to go into this middle room that is in between those two big rooms and go into like this vault, and which is there's like a door to the outside, and put in a code. And I looked to my left, and there was like scratches of people who tried to put in codes, like they wrote down the codes they were going to do for each person to try and get in. And if it had like if it wasn't scratched out, then if it was scratched out, then that means that they lost, or that they couldn't do it, or like something like that. Like they weren't able to figure it out, and then they turned into like the zombie eating thing that eats people. And then afterwards, I shifted back to another scene where I was in the room again, and this time it was like a little bit later, where like I was like, so like the person who went inside the locked room with like the vault to the outside, they were still in there. However, I was able to switch back and forth between those two people, and because I didn't shut the door immediately to the vault, and then I wasn't choosing a code to put into the door was still open and it wasn't locked. And so when I was in that room, the zombies came in, and that was when like they came in to like get everyone initially. And so I remember I was like, fuck, I can't close the door, because if I close the door, then they'll see that I'm moving, and I can't move because if I move, they'll come and eat me. And I'm in the locked room, and if I lock the door, I only have a chance of either the only chance I have is to either get the combination right the first try, or I have to turn into a zombie. And so I didn't understand what to do. But then there was like, when I was in the locked room, which was like the size of like maybe like a living room, like the vault, they started to like come in. There was like two or three of them like smelling around and like trying to like find everything. And they started to like touch the numbers on the walls or whatever. And they started to like touch the walls, and they started to like touch me, and they started to like feel my like legs or whatever, and like touch me down my legs. And then they started to, I was like, okay, we don't know what happens. Then I started to think, I was like, okay, well, we don't know what happens whenever the lights come on. Like the lights went off, like the whole, like even in the vault, the lights went off. And so, like I was like, okay, I'm next to the light switch and I'm next to the door. I can either run out and I can lock them in there, but if I lock them in there, then no one will ever have a chance of trying to escape again. Or I was like, okay, well, I can stay in here. And then if I shut the door, we don't know what happens whenever we shut the door, because no one's been dumb enough to try and shut the door and keep everyone out, to like keep them out, like while they're inside with us. And I was like, I don't know what would happen. And so I woke up from the dream. Long story short, I woke up from the dream like midway through, when I was in the vault surrounded by those things. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I like shifted perspectives again, and I woke up. And then when I went back to sleep again, I was another person. And so I don't know what happened to the person in the vault. So sorry if that was someone wanted the conclusion, but nothing happened. I wasn't in the vault anymore. I was a different person. This time, it was like the next sequence of when these things came, like, and then that's when I realized, when I woke up, that it was like sequential, where like people come, like they came like every month or so, like every week or something like that. It wasn't random. And so this time they came with someone else, and they came with someone from the other room. There was like a room and a hallway, and then like a room, and then in between those two things was the vault. And so someone had came to this side of us and was like with the zombies. It was like this rich person, and like these super expensive clothes, and these like super, expensive beads and like things like that. I remember I was next to the door whenever the lady came in, and we were like, oh my gosh, we've never seen another human before, and you look so different than what we're wearing, and it'll look so different than what we look like. Where are you from? And I was about to ask her, and then the zombies came like with her, and she started to like point at people, and she started to take people. And at this point, because somehow like the system or the registry of how the lights turn off or on, because a human came through the door and not those zombie things, the lights didn't turn off. So everyone was like out in the open and everyone could see everything. And that way the zombies were able to see us too, or like the things were able to see us too. So when she pointed at people, they started to like run away. And that's when the zombies also started to like come and attack them and get them. And then I saw people like losing their children. I saw people losing their family members. I saw people like trying to fight off the zombies and like use like knives and sticks and everything like that. And because I'm able to like shift perspectives in my dreams, I was also those types of people where I was like trying to fight them. I was like hitting them with sticks. I was like trying to like stab them and things like that. And I tried to like yell at the lady to like stop this, but whenever I yelled at her, I like was attacked. And so after that, I woke up because it was scary as fuck. I woke up and then I was the person in the vault again. But this time there was no zombies there. I was still stuck in the vault, but there was no zombies. Somehow they like disappeared or something like that. And so I put in a random code that like the zombies had like touched the wall and like pointed to something, and like there's like blood next to the numbers, and I touched it, and like the door opened. And I remember as the door opened to the outside, it was like this Grand Canyon type thing where there was like dusty rocks. The earth was like orange and yellow and gray. And I could hear on the inside so many people dying and like things like that. Like people were screaming, and I was like, well, I'm the only person now who was able to go outside. And then I looked over a cliff. We were actually suspended on a cliff. And I don't remember what it was, but there was like a forest beneath me, but it was like a dry, dead forest, like you see in like the savannah. And so in it, there was like a compound of like people moving around and things like that. And so I was like, well, fuck, I need somehow how to get there because there's people down there. I've never seen anyone else besides the people inside the room. I need to get down there. And as I was doing that, one of those rich people, which was like a guy this time, he came up to me and he was like, I can get you down. And he like, this is where the dream gets a little bit weird. He like transformed into like a transformer or something like that, and he like became like a bus and like one of those like semi trucks. He transformed into a semi truck like Optimus Prime or whatever. And then we started to like go down the cliff, and like it was like a car crash scene where like a car like flies off a cliff and it like bounces on the cliff side and it burns, and then things like that. It turns into like it gets crushed. But I was in the car when that happened. So I was like getting crushed and I was being set on fire and things like that. And then I somehow made it to the bottom, and he like disappeared. And so I walked into this compound of like these farmers or whatever. And then in the compound, they had never seen anyone else before too. So they were like, who are you? Or like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And so they like fed me food. They like tried to like make me a part of their family, things like that. They started asking me questions. And then I I heard like a knock on like the door, and I was like, and then I turned off all the lights, and they're like, why are you turning off all the lights? And they like tried to like turn it back on, things like that. And I was like, everyone be quiet, hide, don't say anything. And then I jumped on top of like the refrigerator or like jumped on top of the cabinets or whatever. And I was so like where the type of room it was in, it was kind of like a trailer or kind of like a camper where like it's one long tube kind of, and there's like beds on like the left side, and then on the right side there's like the steering wheel and things like that, and there's like couches in the middle and things like that, and blah blah blah. And so like the kids that also were like sleeping, they like got up and they're like, what's happening, blah blah blah, and then the zombies came and eat them. The zombies like busted through this door and started to eat them, and I would try to like tell them, and I tried to reach out to them, but I couldn't, because if I moved and they would see me. And so I literally just sat there with my arm reached out, in the dark, like watching these children get eaten alive. And then once the zombies left, I woke up, and that was the end of the dream. And then I realized, when I like fully was awake and I started to think about this, how really crazy cool this would be as like a horror film and like a zombie film or something like that. And I started to like think about ways like maybe there's like two factions of like people stuck in this place. There's like a rich faction and like a poor faction. And they would like each go into the room, like to the vault and try and leave, but none of them knew that there was other people on the other side. They thought it was only like only the rich people could leave or only the poor people could leave. They didn't know that the other people existed on the other side of the room. And so once they got in there, they would like fight each other, and they were like, well, I don't know who you are, I need to leave, and you can't be you. And they would fight each other, and whoever won would be the one who like get the chance to enter the code, and the other person would be turned into a zombie or whatever. And if the person failed the code, they would also be turned into a zombie. And I just started thinking about how like all like the people hiding and not moving and like pretending that they're dead and things like that reminded me of like school shooters and stuff like that, where like children and people in school have to like do shooter drills where like they basically pretend to be like that, where they don't move, they turn off all the lights, they have to hide. And how powerful of a film that would be if it was a film, like a horror film for people of my generation, and how much of like it would show that like even if you have like rich, like even if you're rich and powerful, you still have to follow the same rules, I guess. Even if you don't think you do, like you could still die the same way we could still die, you know, like being poor and stuff, like the way poor people could die and stuff. And I just started to think about like all like the political and all the like the like the morals and everything started to like click together, how this would be a really really cool movie. um but I just couldn't figure out how, like, if it was a movie, I can't figure out why they would be stuck in this place in the first place. Like, why would they be inside of this room? Uh, and like basically they're living life normally, but they don't have a way to get food. They don't have a way to like get water. Like they're just stuck in the room. How do they get there? And then how do they know when to turn off the lights? And how do they not think about going in the hallway where the zombies come from? How do they, you know, all these different things about like how it works as like a as like the how the world works doesn't make sense, and I don't know what to do if that would become a movie. But I think it would be a pretty cool premise where like you cannot move, and like you have to turn off the lights, you cannot breathe, and if you move then you get bit. But even if you get bit, if you stop moving while they're biting you, then they won't continue to bite you. They only bite you if you move or scream. So like through all the pain you have to not scream at all, because if you continue to scream then they keep like eating you. And you don't turn into like a zombie if they bite you, it's only if they take you away. So like you're stuck with all of like the bleeding scars and everyone has to help you and things like that. It's crazy. So yeah, it was a really traumatic dream last night. And this happened like sequentially in like 5 or 6 or 7 different dreams. And it was just a lot. And that just goes to show you, like, I have those types of dreams like every single night. There's been so many other types of dreams I can tell you about where I've had the same idea where like I'm able to feel the pain, and I'm able to like see the blood and all this crazy stuff. But this one was particularly bad because I think it really really scared me, because I didn't understand what was happening. Usually in my dreams I always understand what's happening, but this one I didn't understand what's happening, and that one freaked me out a little bit. So yeah, that's the podcast for today. I can do more dream related ones where it's not as long, but I honestly just need to get it out of my brain because I've been thinking about all day long, and it's just been freaking me out. It's like affecting my mood. So I'm just gonna drink some tea. My tea is cold now. I hope you enjoyed this. It's really scary. Imagine living it. Like that's another thing about my dreams is I always live it. Like I always experience it as if I was there personally. And because I shift between so many different characters, I feel different things. I feel things differently, and I see things differently. And I'm taller or shorter, and I'm wider, and I have a tighter grip on some things than other ones, and I'm able to smell things differently. And sometimes I can't see, and sometimes I can see, and but I'm in the same area of what's always happening. It's crazy. Um, so yeah, that's it. Be safe, and I hope everyone has good dreams. Okay, bye-bye.